The UN conference on the least developed countries is all set to kick off in Doha, Qatar from tomorrow. On the eve of the mega summit today, the participating nations have already discussed their national agenda to be tabled at the 5-day meet. Nepali delegation also had an opportunity to call on UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres as the two sides held a bilateral discussion. Good evening, I'm Sarah Chitrakar and these are the headlines of the hour. The Nepali delegation calls on UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres at the UN conference on the least developed countries. Minister Shrestha says LDCs are the battleground on which the 2030 agenda will be won or lost. Nepal's labour destination countries likely to suffer from global economic downturn. Economists express concern over foreign employment and remittance collection. Concerns about North Korea's chronic food shortages are growing, with multiple sources suggesting this week that deaths due to starvation are likely. And armed police force too good for 3-star. Chalk out a 2-0 victory. Church boys edge past Nepal police 2-1. Manang Marsandi taking on Himalayan Sherpa in the other match. The 5th United Nations Conference on the Least Developed Countries (LDC) is taking place in Doha, Qatar from tomorrow till 9th of March. The Nepali delegation also called on the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres as the two sides held a bilateral meeting. The summit will be attended by the heads of state and government or the heads of delegation of the LDCs. Member states today moved closer towards helping the world's most vulnerable countries pull out of poverty and debt, recover from the pandemic and meet ongoing climate challenges by adopting, through a consensus, a resolution that lays down a 10-year blueprint called the Doha Programme of Action. Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Physical Infrastructure and Transport, Narayan Kaji Shrestha, representing Nepal, addressed the summit earlier today, which was coordinated by Malawi, the chair of LDC group.
Is why and how we continue to suffer from perpetuity of poverty and underdevelopment. Mr. Chair, the answer lies, among others, in the lack of sufficient and impactful support measures and meaningful collaboration to implement the programs of action. Clearly, as in the 1980s, the LDCs need to transform the structures of their economies with stronger industrial capacity, better productivity, and an expanded export base. For decades, LDCs, GDP and share of export in world trade had stayed.
Minister Shrestha said the least developed countries were the battleground on which the 2030 agenda will be won or lost. Minister Shrestha stressed on the need for synergy between climate action and the pandemic recovery package. He called on the development partners to meet their official development assistance (ODA) commitments to spend 0.15 to 0.20% of gross national income and repurpose their special unused drawing rights. He cited other action areas such as enhancing international trade in the least developed countries to support their growth and their global exports. The delegation, along with Minister Shrestha, also held talks with UN General Secretary Antonio Guterres. Supreme Court has given a directive to file a writ against Prime Minister and CPN Maoist chairperson Pushpa Kamal Dahal. The writ demands Prime Minister Dahal's arrest and investigate him on the case regarding the killings carried out during insurgency period. The Supreme Court directed its own administration to register 2 separate writs against Prime Minister Dahal. One of the writs was filed by 15 people, including Gyanendra Raj Aran, son of Ramechhap's Tika Raj Aran, who was killed by then CPN Maoist insurgents. The other writ was filed by 8 people, including Ramechhap's Kalyan Burathoki, who was injured and displaced by the Maoist. They had filed the writs at the Supreme Court on 31st of October last year. However, the Supreme Court administration had decided on 10th of November not to register the writs. The writ petitioners then registered the writs directly at the Supreme Court bench. Spokesperson for the Supreme Court, Bimal Paudel, informed that the joint bench of Justice to Ishwar Prasad Khatiwada and Hari Prasad Phuyal gave the directive yesterday to file the writs against Prime Minister Dahal. Addressing a mass assembly on the day of Maghi 3 years ago, the Maoist chair had said that he would take the responsibility of killing of 5,000 people during the insurgency period. World Bank and International Monetary Fund have projected that the Russian war on Ukraine and corona pandemic will have its effect on economic recession till 2024. This will impact the economy of big and small nations alike. The countries like Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, UAE and South Korea, the main labor destination of Nepal, are also likely to be affected by the global economic downturn. Economists have therefore started expressing concern over foreign employment and remittance collection. International Monetary Fund and the World Bank have claimed that the ongoing economic recession will deepen this year as Nepal's labor destination nations cannot remain exception to this reality. IMF has projected the growth rate of Malaysia among other 5 ASEAN nations to be limited to 4.3%, while Saudi Arabia's growth rate will not exceed 3.2%. Remittance collection is considered the lifeline of the country's national economy. With the labor destination nation's economy badly dented, its impact is now to be felt in the country's economy, according to experts. In the meantime, the human resource companies are maintaining that it is too early to feel intimidated by the situation and that the economic gloom set in due to the Russia-Ukraine war and the pandemic will slowly settle down. Experts have also called on the focus on productive sector to sustain the national economy rather than express concern over dwindling remittance collection. Congress leader Ramchandra Paudel and CPN-UML Deputy Chair Subhash Chandra Nimwang have intensified talks with various parties amid fear and hope of crossing the vote weight. Congress leader Paudel, who is the consensus candidate of the 8-party alliance, faces the potential risk of cross-vote from within the 8-party alliance. A number of the coalition leaders have begun projecting changes in the current political scenario until the presidential election, despite possibility of win due to the difference in vote weight. Other leaders, however, claim that there are less chances of cross the floor, citing that the 8-party coalition has been formed with a long-term agreement. CPN-UML has continued efforts to reach a consensus for the March 9th presidential election with various parties. CPN-UML, that will likely garner the support of Rashtriya Swatantra Party and Rashtriya Prajatantra Party, has been holding talks with parties and parliamentarians with a view to secure majority. The vote weight of the 8-party alliance, along with Congress and Maoist Centre, is 31,615. Meanwhile, CPN-UML has the vote weight of 15,233 and Rashtriya Swatantra Party has 3,951. The party has to collect around 11,000 additional vote weight to secure majority in favour of Nimwang. Meanwhile, the chances of cross-voting is minimal in the presidential election, where the voters are the federal and provincial lawmakers. However, both the presidential candidates have been speculating cross-voting during the March 9 election. The government has issued a circular to the District Administration Office as well as security bodies under the Nepal Police Headquarters to make special security arrangements for banks, microfinance and finance. The Ministry of Home Affairs issued a directive to all the 77 district administration offices across the country and Nepal Police Headquarters yesterday after a number of incidents came into light where individuals involved in bank fraud, scams and bad debt had threatened the financial institutions instead of paying their debt. The ministry has directed the district administrations and the police to remain alert regarding possible criminal activities targeting banking and financial institutions and take strict actions against those who fail to abide by the law. The local residents have obstructed the construction of a tunnel road in Jamire of Nisti Rural Municipality in Palpa that was being constructed to transport limestones. The local residents of Jamire have obstructed the construction works of the tunnel, demanding rehabilitation. The local residents have become agitated as the drinking water has dried up due to the stones and mud tossed from the area where the tunnel road is being constructed by Hongshi Shivam Cement. 55 households of the area have become agitated, while the chairperson of Area Development Committee, Ram Bahadur Bika, has said that the obstructions will remain intact until the issue gets solved. Likewise, 15 households of Admara have also been deprived of drinking water. The representatives of Hongshi Shivam Cement Company says that the issue of drinking water will be solved and has been appealing the district administration Palpa to help resume the construction works. Time now for our segment, Public Pulse, where you text us with your opinion.
Public Pulse.
Here's the question: why have construction works of Dharara not concluded even after 2 years of inauguration? The options are A. Rush for inauguration, B. Irresponsible contractors, and C. Government indifference. Voting is on. Type any WS, select your option A, B or C and send it to 34001 to share your opinion with us. Time now for international update. Concerns about North Korea's chronic food shortages are growing, with multiple sources suggesting this week that deaths due to starvation are likely. Some experts say the country has hit its worst point since a 1990s famine known as the Arduous March caused mass starvation and killed hundreds of thousands of people, or an estimated 3 to 5% of what was then a 20 million strong population. Trade data, satellite images and assessments by the United Nations and South Korean authorities all suggest the food supply has now dipped below the amount needed to satisfy minimum human needs, according to Lucas Rengifo Keller, a research analyst at the Peterson Institute of International Economics. South Korean officials agree with that assessment, with Seoul announcing recently that it believes deaths from starvation are occurring in some areas of the country. Though producing solid evidence to back up those claims is made difficult by the country's isolation, few experts doubt its assessment. Even before the COVID pandemic, nearly half of the North Korean population was undernourished, according to the UN Food and Agriculture Organization. 3 years of closed borders and isolation can only have made matters worse. In a sign of just how desperate the situation has become, North Korean leader Kim Jong-un held a 4-day Workers' Party meeting this week to discuss a revamp of the country's agricultural sector, calling for a fundamental transformation in farming and state economic plans and a need to strengthen state control of farming. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov accused the United States of hypocrisy after U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said Russia cannot be allowed to wage war in Ukraine with impunity during a security forum they attended in New Delhi on Friday. The top diplomats from Moscow and Washington had both attended the Group of 20 foreign ministers gathering in the Indian capital earlier this week and met in person for the first time since Russian forces invaded Ukraine a year ago. Speaking at the same Strategic Affairs Forum after Blinken, Lavrov said it was double standards to question Russia's action in Ukraine when the United States cited a threat to its national interest to justify military intervention in various parts of the world, including the war in Iraq, airstrikes in Libya, and the bombing of Yugoslavia during the Kosovo conflict in 1999. Lavrov also said the question of when Russia will negotiate an end to the war should be put to Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky. At the G20, the United States and its allies called on member countries to keep pressuring Russia to end the conflict, but the G20 was unable to agree on a joint statement on the war due to opposition from China and Russia, which calls its actions a special military operation aimed at removing what it says is a threat to its own security. The Russian minister went on to accuse Washington of trying to militarize the Quadrilateral Security Dialogue, a partnership between the United States, Australia, India, and Japan that focuses on strategic issues in the Indo-Pacific region. Earlier in the day, Blinken had met with his counterparts from the Quad, as the grouping is informally called, and they issued a statement saying the use of nuclear weapons is inadmissible. The departmental team APF have thumped Three-Star Club 2-0 in today's match played at the Dashrath Stadium. In the other match played at Chasal Ground, a new entrance, Church Boys stunned Nepal Police Club 2-1. After a goalless first half at the Dashrath Stadium, APF scored both the goals in the second half. Manikumar Lama scored a spectacular goal as he converted a free kick from about 40 yards. APF added one more goal in the 87th minute as their foreign recruit Adram Bedam scored from a close range to seal the 2-0 victory. APF have retained Bedam in the team from the last season. The Patan-based club being coached by Meghraj Kesi were simply outplayed by the spirited boys from the APF in the match today. Former national captain Biraj Maharjan and Bikram Lama, a noted defender, were able to hold on the APF team in the first half, but the team conceded 2 goals in the second to give full points to APF. Likewise, in the other match of the day, the new entrants Church Boys united Nepal Police Club 2-1. Meanwhile, Manang Marshangdi Club are taking on Himalayan Sherpa Club in the other match currently underway at the Dashrath Stadium. That's all for the moment. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.